I'm Kelsey Litchfield, and this is the Field Advisor Podcast, where I talk with local experts to unpack the latest agronomy information and research, giving you the knowledge to make informed decisions out in the field. Welcome back, everyone, to the Field Advisor Podcast. I'm Kelsey Litchfield here at Farm Progress Show once again. We're joined by great partners of the Illinois Soybean Association, Jean Brokish. And Jean, what's your title?
I'm the Deputy Director for the Midwest region of American Farmland Trust.
Okay, and then Kris Reynolds.
Yep, I'm the Midwest Regional Director.
Okay, so we're going to talk a little bit about conservation here at the Farm Progress Show. What are you guys doing here at the Farm Progress Show? Like, what's your main goal while you're here at the show?
Well, I'm also the treasurer of the Illinois Sustainable Ag Partnership, and my role here at Farm Progress Show is covering the booth, sharing information about ISAP partnership in the Partners for Conservation tent, and really just sharing information and resources with farmers and farm advisors on soil health, water quality, cover crops, all sorts of other practices that are good for the environment, good for the farm productivity and profitability, as well as helping Illinois meet those water quality goals.
That sounds good. Kris, what about you? What's your number one goal while you're here?
Well, I think it's a great opportunity for us to, meet some of the farmers we work with throughout the year through some of our programming, but also network with partners that we work with and also meet new folks and I think also, gain a better understanding of some of the new technology that's out there in the agricultural world. And I think really it's a great opportunity with the Conservation Partners tent for us to be in a same space with a lot of the partners that we work with throughout the year.
So speaking of partners, Jean, you said treasurer of Illinois Sustainable Ag Partnership, which is also called ISAP. Mm-hmm. So for those that aren't familiar with ISAP, I know there's a lot of partners that come into one to help support ISAP, but just give us a little summary of what ISAP is.
Yeah, essentially it's an organization comprised of organizations that have all agreed to work together around that space of soil health and water quality. And it started back in 2015, 10 years ago, when the nutrient loss reduction strategy for Illinois was being created and released. And at the same time, the state of Illinois had some serious budget cuts, and a lot of technical advisors and soil and water conservation district employees were cut or funding was cut. And so the story, the genesis of ISAP is really three women who were friends, one from AFT, one from the Nature Conservancy, and the other from Illinois Corn. They were all friends, and they were having beers together and talking about kind of like a little bit commiserating, I guess, about the fact that there was a lot more work helping farmers meet the goals of NLRS, but there was fewer people to do it, and they decided to work together, and that collaboration was really the seed of ISAP. And since then, we've grown, and we're up at 19 partners now, including the Soybean Association, corn growers, some other industry groups, some other NGOs. American Farmland Trust still takes a very active leadership role. I'm on the board, and we have some staff who provide that coordination and management. But it's really a great example of how groups can work together and share resources, share information, create some common messaging to help reach that common goal, common ground.
Talk about the recent resources. I know Illinois Soybean a couple years ago funded a cover crop directory, if my memory serves me right, correct? So you talk about the resources you create.
Yeah, a couple. Really, we're just trying to make it easier for farmers to access information and adopt those practices. And one of the things that we partnered with the Soybean Association on was that cover crop directory, as well as a financial incentive directory. So it was a lot of different programs out there for people who might be getting started, pairing them up with people who are selling seeds or people who might be, seeding or custom seeding, either drilling or aerial drones or whatever. So we developed that directory so farmers who maybe didn't have the equipment themselves could look for somebody in their area and hire that out. And then the financial incentive database too, which we call our FIND tool.
Yes, the FIND tool.
Yeah, the FIND tool. That was really critical, I think. Lots of farmers who are interested in trying maybe don't know where to find the resources, or that financial assistance can really help offset the costs initially. And worked with soybean part of the agronomy team.
Sure. Yep.
Gathered information on 63 some programs available for farmers in Illinois and created an online filterable database. So farmers just answer 3 easy questions: where they grow, what type of crop system they have, and what kind of conservation practices they're in, and it returns a various number of programs that would be eligible for them, and then they can go explore a little bit more and understand what the program details are. Yeah.
Kris, you work with farmers, correct?
Yeah.
They're looking for these resources because we just had a conversation with Dr. Van earlier, who's a new extension. He goes, you can get a lot of information in a lot of places, but sometimes there's a niche for information that you need that you can't find anywhere. So tell me about what farmers are looking for when it comes to conservation information.
Yeah, I think, ISAP is just a great example of organizations working together to produce resources that farmers need and farm advisors need as well. And I think, they've really met the moments over their time since they've been created. And I go back to, one of the first projects that ISAP did with carbon credits and carbon credit programs. And, it's not that ISAP was promoting carbon markets or promoting certain companies, but someone needed to help farmers better understand what was available and the differences between those programs. And I remember that first webinar was like 800 and some people that were on that webinar, and it's just it was just amazing. And I think from then on, it was really clear that ISAP, their role was really, working together to provide those resources. And that's led to cover crop directories, the financial incentive database tool. I mean, there are so many programs out there. It's hard for us to keep them straight. We're trying to figure out what programs what. And so we know how confusing it is for farmers when they're maybe trying to find a program that's right for them. And other farm advisors that are working with farmers, how can we provide them with a better source of information? And so, I think it really created a system that's better than a lot of other states have, and it's been really, really valuable to farmers and advisors. And I think the other part of it is just the stackability of these programs. There are so many programs out there. Some can be stacked with others and some can't. And how do you know? And so, it's really a one-stop shop to gather that information. Of course, that takes a lot of maintenance. These programs are changing constantly. So, someone has to update that information. Someone has to add in new programs. And so there's a lot of work there that has to be done to keep that system maintained.
Definitely. Are they still talking carbon markets as the wild, wild west still? There's still so much information to find out, but you got to start somewhere, and some of these resources do that. So, Jean, tell us more about ISAP and any other tidbits that you want farmers to know that this is how we help you.
Yeah, I think a couple other resources that come to mind for me is the Conservation Story Map, which again is really a directory of people who have maybe received some training or have some experience doing conservation practices that are willing to share information with other farmers. Just this morning at my table, I witnessed this. A farmer was asking me about terminating cover crops, and right behind him was a farmer who had been doing it for years. And suddenly this conversation happened and this connection happened. Yeah. So we're really just trying to create that network and that peer-to-peer learning that's happening among farmers who have some experience and those who are just getting started. So the Conservation Story Map is one of those. And then related is a advanced soil health or soil health leadership program.
I'm glad you mentioned that. I was going to bring it up. Yep.
Yeah, that ISAP also hosts. And I think we're on our 5th cohort of that. It's about an 18-month program that really is advanced soil health. It's taking people, maybe they're farmers, maybe they're farm advisors, extension agents who have some experience and knowledge with soil health, and it gets really into the science of it, the economics of it, the equipment details of it, and really just kind of building that network again of people who are knowledgeable and willing to share with others.
Let's talk about the farmer advisors. We talk to a lot of farmers, but we can't reach every farmer, obviously, but we talk to a lot of advisors, certified crop advisors, agronomists. I would like for you to, both of you, talk a little bit more why it's important to train them, especially here in the state of Illinois when we've got a lot going on across the state.
Yeah. I'll kick this to Kris as a CCA himself.
Yeah, and so and you know, I was in the Soy Envoy program before I was field advisor, and I think, you know, there's only so many farmers we can meet with one-on-one, and there's also only so many farmers that want that type of technical support. So we've found other ways. You know, it's we could still do some of that one-on-one. You know, helping guide farmers through, you know, that intersection of agronomy and conservation practices. But also, how can we better enable, you know, local soil and water conservation districts to help their farmers, and maybe it's just that they know who to contact, you know, for that advice. Maybe it's somebody at Soy, maybe it's somebody at American Farmland Trust. But how do we constantly, you know, maintain those connections so that people know where the resources are and people know where the experts are? And then, as Jean mentioned, I think the piece that's probably the most exciting to me is just this farmer-led, you know, as a farmer myself, you know, I just, you know, some of these things happen constantly, you know, in the spring and the fall. You have your neighbors calling you and say, hey, what are you doing? What are you thinking? How many pounds an acre of cereal rye are you going to plant this year? When are you going to terminate your rye in the spring? And so I think if we can foster more of those relationships and make farmers feel more comfortable, you know, telling their story to their neighbors, inviting them to see what they're doing. We're really, I think, already starting to see some great success in that type of model where we're just empowering these farmer leaders and letting them talk about what they love to do. And I think that's really exciting. And I think as we continue to grow, you know, that type of program, that's really going to be helpful in providing the support to the farmers that are new to conservation practices, but also to the ones that have even been doing it for a while, like to just say, hey, this, you know, this works well. And on the other side, one thing I experienced this spring myself is through our local watershed farmer-led group was just I needed a roller crimper to crimp my rye, and being part of that group allowed me the knowledge to, you know, I found out that like one of my neighbors had a roller crimper. Like I would not have known that had not have been a part of that group, and so I think it's sharing some of those, you know, expertise, but it's also sharing like equipment resources that may be important in the future as well.
Yeah, because being here at Farm Progress Show, walking around, some of this equipment is very expensive. So the more that you can help others with it too, and on that too, on the equipment side, since we're at the Farm Progress Show, are you guys seeing anything that you're like, wow, that's really neat for conservation or for the environment, being good stewards of the land? Anything that sticks out?
Well, one thing, usually when I walk around, I'm just in awe of how big everything is,
yeah.
you know. But one thing I did notice this morning, a couple more signs on equipment that said it was good for cover crops. And I feel like that's new, you know. It's not just about speed or about power, but there is more and more companies and recognition that farmers are interested in cover crops and reduced tillage, you know, managing that soil health. So I was excited to see that as part of their marketing message.
It's a great observation. Okay, anything else on the ISAP side that we're forgetting or missing that you want to share with our audience?
No, I think, you know, having been part of, you know, been with ISAP for many years, and just I'm amazed by the growth to have 19 organizations involved. There's still room for more growth, you know, and I think if your organization, if there's organizations out there that have an interest in, you know, sustainability, soil health, water quality, you know, reach out. Let's see how we can also work with you as well.
And I would just add to that, it's a very collaborative organization, so it's a lot of room. It's like what you bring to the table and what you want to contribute, and there's room for that shared leadership component of it. So, you know, if there's a priority or a need that soybean is seeing, or if there's a need that a different group who's not part of it is needing and could benefit from that partnership, I think there's room at the table to work together.
How often does ISAP meet? It's a board, correct?
Right. We have a board of directors that meets every other month, But twice a year we try to do kind of a full partner meeting, and one of that is kind of a businessy work planning session, and then another one we just try to have some fun. So for example, we were at the state fair and we just had ice cream and networking, and that was a great opportunity.
Sounds good.
Yeah, and there's a lot of ISAP members here at Farm Progress, so connecting with them. We have a happy hour this afternoon, which I know folks watching this will miss, but you know, that kind of just creating some networks and time to connect with each other. That's really an opportunity. And so if folks are members of ISAP, obviously they're in the know about that and can help shape the message and identify those resources and kind of work together.
Speaking of identifying resources real quick, how do you decide what to focus on? Like we talked about the resources, the Find tool, the cover crop directory. How did those come to be? Were they from conversations from farmers? Were they someone's idea? Like how do those ideas, how do you pick them and then come to fruition?
Yeah, it's just listening and getting feedback from farmers or farm advisors, retailers, people who are attending workshops or webinars. What are those questions? And it's really just being observant and saying, hey, you know, it feels like there's a gap here, and then identifying what resources might exist within the ISAP partnership. And then, of course, it's rolling up your sleeves and making it happen. So,
right.
Yeah.
Okay, I have to ask on the American Farmland Trust side, give real quick, I know you're involved with ISAP, but shifting a little bit, tell our audience a little bit more about what AFT does, because I know, are you based across the country? Is that correct? I mean, American Farmland Trust, but we talk to you a lot here in the state of Illinois.
Yeah, we are a national nonprofit organization. So we have, Jean and I work with the Midwest region, and AFT has 8 regions across the U.S., so not all of our states are covered with a regional program. But then we also have national divisions that work on soil health and water quality, Women for the Land programs, farmland protection. And so we're national scope. We started in 1980, really kind of born out of the need for protecting farmland. We had some early, members that were really focused on protecting agricultural lands. There was work being done to protect natural areas and others, but they started to see that need in 1980 to keep agricultural land in farming. And so, our mission is to protect farmland, to keep farmers on that land, and also to promote sound farming practices. So, when I started with AFT almost 9 years ago, we were pretty much working on the practices part of AFT's mission in the Midwest. And it really, as Jean mentioned earlier, nutrient loss reduction strategy that was released in 2015. And that was really that area that we started working in and focusing on soil health to help meet the water quality goals for Illinois. Since that time, our programming has really grown. We do a lot of conservation and ag policy work in multiple states. We also, one of the larger growing areas has been with our farmland protection work. And so working with landowners and farmers that want to keep their land in agriculture, to find programs for them, to support local conservation land trusts. And so we really take a holistic approach to agriculture. It's about the land, it's about the people, and it's about the practices on that land. So, it's an exciting organization to work for, but also we have a lot going on at any given time.
Yeah, I should mention Tori Colburn, who works for American Farmland Trust, and he's one of our soy envoys this year. We've enjoyed having him on. I have 2 questions. First, I'll start with the nutrient loss reduction strategy. Could you, either one of you, give a quick summary of where we are with that? What's going on? I know we're not projected to meet the goal, or there was a goal for 2025, correct? Here we are in 2025, or was it 2030? I can't remember, but just give our audience a quick glimpse of where we stand with that.
Yeah, the interim goal for 2025 was a 25% reduction in nitrate loss and 45% reduction in phosphorus. And so we won't know whether we've met that goal for probably another year or so till we get all the water quality and that type of data in. And so what I can say is that, we know what the strategy said about, the amount of practices that we needed applied to the land. Have we gotten anywhere close to that? No, we haven't. We've seen an increase in cover crop adoption. We've gone from probably 2% to 7%. But just not at the scale or the rate that's needed. When you look at some of the other practices, we focus on the infield management practices like no-till, cover crops, nutrient management. I think there's been some really good strides in nutrient management. There's more farmers that are applying in-field or in-season nitrogen for their corn. I think that's been a good change. But I think when you look at what we've seen climate and weather-wise over the last 10 years, we're seeing more intense rainfall events.
Yeah.
We're seeing, 4-inch rains, 8-inch rains, 12-inch rainfall events. And so we almost have a moving target. We've got this strategy and we're like, all right, we've got to do this to make these reductions. But now we're seeing, an increase in water leaving the state of Illinois because we've got more runoff. And we haven't necessarily seen an increase in overall rainfall. We're just seeing an increase in how fast it comes and the frequency at which it's coming at us.
And then I was going to say, do you have anything to add, Jean?
Yeah, well, I think picking up on that rainfall thing, one of the practices that's really important to Illinois agriculture is tile drainage, and it becomes even more important and top of mind for farmers when we have a lot of rainfall happening in the spring planting season. And I think one of the opportunities too, Kris mentioned, and our focus on the infield practices, but there's a whole suite of edge of field practices too, and drainage water management component or saturated buffers, those are really effective. And I think if we can work, which ISAP and AFT and many partners are working with folks who are installing that tile, if we can think about how to design those treatment points as part of the installation process, I think there's a lot of hope there. And did talk with a pretty large tile supplier in the state, and he indicated to me that was one of the things that they're starting to think about and talk about. So I was really encouraged by that, because I think we can also see, again, going back to that whole role of retailers and farm advisors, I think if we can get some of the suppliers and the tile installers on board with those practices too, it can go a long ways.
It would all connect.
And the farmers, I know, on my farm where I have patterned tile drainage, it makes conservation practices a lot easier to manage. And I think that's, what we're seeing is that, more rainfall, wetter springs, fewer favorable planting days in the spring is causing us to invest in tile, and at the same time, that we're doing that, we're not recognizing that, like, maybe we don't need to do as much tillage on that, or maybe we can start to do no-till, or maybe we can manage cover crops better on those fields as well. And so I think it's a shift in the industry. It's also, I think, where we're at right now with the farm economy, like, how can we take a closer look at some costs that we can reduce? And we know from, precision conservation management data that, like, one pass tillage ahead of corn is the most profitable system. And so we can start to look, I think we're going to have to look a lot closer at the economics of the practices. And we can start small with reducing tillage. Fall tillage on soybean stubble is that needed? And can we reduce that? In addition to the wetter weather, look at what we're seeing from drier weather in the form of dust storms. I never thought 2 years ago I would see that in my backyard, and looking at, dust blowing across Illinois, and I think we're seeing it more and more, multiple times each year. And so, what can we do as farmers? What can we do as conservation professionals to help farmers, adopt practices that help them keep their soil in place, help them keep their nutrients in place?
And then I think you come full circle with ISAP, with many organizations coming together to help, because it's not one thing one company can undertake, and it's going to take many to help to come together, whether it's commodities, whether it's industry. It's going to take all of us. Any other lasting remarks for the podcast today?
Reach out, to us to, check out some of our resources, both at American Farmland Trust and also at IllinoisSustainableAg.org.
Great plug. Jean, anything else you want to mention?
I just wanted to express gratitude for the Illinois Soybean Association for being a member and the leadership and the support that you're providing to ISAP and helping us, helping ISAP and other members of ISAP share information with growers across Illinois.
Thank you, Jean. Thank you, Kris. We'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, Kelsey.
Thanks for listening to the Field Advisor Podcast. Unbiased, independent agronomy information to keep your farm moving forward. I'm Kelsey Litchfield, your voice from the field. This podcast is funded by the Illinois Soybean Association Checkoff Program. Stay connected with Field Advisor on social media. Follow, like, and share to keep the conversation going. And don't forget to subscribe to the Field Advisor Podcast on your favorite podcast platform.